G'day mate, Fordy here. I'm at Circular Quay. Oh man, I don't have this camera set up right, do I? Anyway, this is where all the ferries take off. And just ahead of me is the Sydney Opera House. Good to be back in downtown Sydney. But apparently it's got many of the same problems as other big cities. Shock surprise. So apparently even churches here having problems. Like they're getting derelicts here, even in Sydney. Like nice church service, very posh people, and they'll have derelicts come in. Drug addicts come in, disrupt services, rant and rave that, you guys are all posh, you're not real people, you don't know what's really going on. And unlike synagogues, every synagogue in Sydney, to the best of my knowledge, has security. But virtually none of the churches have security. And so they're going to have to wait until someone gets stabbed. Remember when I was growing up, that my dad would often say that Australia is like 50 years behind America. So I hope when it comes to dysfunction in the big cities, that's not true. So here's the Sydney Harbour Bridge behind me. That's where Paul Hogan used to work, mate. But eventually, if these derelicts keep coming into the churches here, like someone's going to get stabbed, someone's going to get hurt, and then churches are going to have to implement the same sort of security protocols that synagogues have. So every synagogue, to the best of my knowledge, in Sydney, has security guards. I went to a Hanukkah event, there were at least 4 security guards. So after 9/11, synagogues in Australia and Europe got really serious about security. More serious than in America. So you go to a synagogue for the first time in Australia or in Europe, you have to reserve. Right? Send in email, send in your information so they know who you are. Derelicts need being saved by God too. Derelicts should be able to worship. Yeah, but do they have to worship in your home? Do they have to worship? Do they have to worship in your particular church? Yeah, synagogues and Jews in general are very much into realpolitik. They're more interested in the real than the theory. So here's the lovely opera house. If I can just get out of the way. Oh man, doing a terrible job here. There we go. Not very good with my gimbal. It's a relatively new gimbal for me. But the advantage with this gimbal is that so at least I can put a Shure mic on it. The church is not someone's personal home. Yeah, but the analogy, I think, still works. That you may want to help someone who's a street person or a derelict or an addict. That doesn't mean you want to invite them into your church. Right? There'd be all sorts of church philanthropic endeavors where they can get help. Right? It doesn't mean you have to invite them into the Kadosh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies. So in the Holy Temple in ancient Judea, right, there was a place for the Gentiles to go, and there was a place for all Israel to go. Then there are other areas where only priests and Levites could go, and then there was the Kadosh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest could go on Yom Kippur. So you don't have to allow everyone into everywhere. Right? Any decency, any civilization depends upon boundaries. and borders and barriers and walls. So I was listening to Mark Brahman talking with Richard Spencer, and Mark Brahman was saying, oh, Apollonians are good people. Can't believe I said it correctly, Apollonians are good people. But like everyone's, like your own group, yeah, they're more likely to be good, to be your kind of people. But when you're just talking about a rarefied sect, yeah, you're more likely to be at home with them. And so we're very quick to divide people into good and bad. But it's so situational, right? Someone could come on this live stream, be incredibly rude, and yet in their home life they might be wonderful, in their work life they might be wonderful. And in certain situations they'll be strong and truthful and brave. In other situations they're going to be cowardly and rude and antisocial. So these divisions of who's good and who's bad so much depends upon situation, and yet news media often treats them as ineluctable qualities. Okay. Oh, look at that. Can't really give you a good look of the Sydney Opera House. Try another angle. So I think this finished about 1973 when I was still a school kid here in Australia. So I was listening to Mark Brahman talk with Richard Spencer about the Apollonians, all right? That's the new religion that they're developing because their political beliefs are socially unacceptable. So they're having to develop a religion so that they can be more socially acceptable. And so the type of people who are going to adopt Apollonianism are going to be quite limited. Okay, I really got to work on my skills here. There's a bit of a glance at the Sydney Opera House behind me. Planning to walk from downtown Sydney to Watson's Bay.
Shopping mall and you do at someone's house. If you walk into their house, you can't say, well, this is a protest. No, you're going to be arrested. Now, could you hold up a sign and like protest a company that's, I don't know, killing the whales or whatever? Yeah, you can. You kind of have expanded rights in a private zone, like a shopping mall, for instance. But, if we take that and we project that onto the internet, you don't have infinite rights. You just can't do whatever you want, regardless of whether it's a private or public space. And I feel like my own personal trajectory on this was that when people were first getting banned on Twitter, it did seem, arbitrary and highly politically motivated. And my response then was like,